Welcome to the Oshow. I'm Laura Babcock, and I'm going to warn you off the top. I'm coming in hot on this one. As you recall from the episode we just did with Councillors Kretsch and Alex Wilson, I said we weren't going to do another Oshow until we talk more about affordable housing and homelessness, and I've booked Maureen Wilson, Councillor Wilson, for this Friday. But something came up this morning that pissed me off so much, Hamilton, and I'm so sick of it. When we say that we live in the hate capital of Canada, some people dismiss that. They think, oh yeah, that's old news. No, it isn't. It's not old news. It keeps happening over and over again. This morning, we see that a group of Hamilton police officers, former and current volunteers, have decided that because of what happened at the Women of Distinction event, they are no longer going to participate in fundraising for a golf tournament that was raising up to $130,000 a year for the YWCA of Hamilton. So, for those of you who don't know what's going on, indulge me for a minute, because I'm going to tell you the story. And as you can see, we have Jelena Vermillion, who's been on the Oshow before. She's centered in this, so we're going to talk to Jelena about it. And we've put the show together in like 30 minutes. So Jelena, thanks for the rapid response. Okay, so during the Women of Distinction event, and I'll say off the top for full transparency, I am a Women of Distinction recipient. And you know what? The night that my event happened, there were some comments made by a guest speaker that I didn't love. So I sent a letter to the board of the Y, letting them know what I thought. They gave me back a thoughtful response, and I went on to support them and to even MC their future events, right? That's the way you handle it if you're upset with something that you hear. What happened instead was when Jelena, one of several who won the awards that night, congratulations, Jelena, by the way, got up to the podium. She made comments about the police, comments from personal experience, which has been well publicly documented. And I'm going to ask you about those comments, Jelena, because I'm getting a whole lot of messages about them this morning. I was not at the event, so I want to know what you said, okay? But what I did see was after the event, a social media post from a retired staff sergeant of the Hamilton Police Service, a woman. It's important for you to know that, even though nobody should say what I'm about to read. But a woman, former police officer, posted this. And also, for full disclosure, I've blocked this police sergeant in the past from my social media. So I'm going to read this with Jelena's permission because it is no doubt triggering for her and for so many others who are going to hear this, but I'm going to put it on the screen. I'm going to read through it. This is actually something that was posted publicly. And just before I read this, Jelena, I don't think the police have ever taken any accountability for this post. Has there been any apology to you? Anything?
No, there's been no apology, but my understanding is that she deleted it from the LinkedIn is where it was originally posted. And I noticed from the visitors to my LinkedIn account that I'm getting a lot of visitors from police officers all over North America, including Jennifer something, who is the president of the APCO, the Association for Public Safety Communications Office, as well as being the communications supervisor at the Hamilton Police Service. So I noticed she visited my account, and then shortly thereafter that the original post, which you're about to read by Joanne Savoy, was deleted. So I imagine that she was privately instructed or asked to take it down, but I don't know that to be certain.
So if anyone should have received the apology, it would be you. Okay, I'm going to just read this and I'll put it on the screen for our audience. The Young Women's Christian Association, so YWCA, was founded to empower and lift women and girls, not bash and trash. Last night, YWCA Hamilton recognized Jelena Vermillion, a self-proclaimed trans, full-service sex worker, porn performer, activist that lives with disabilities, been incarcerated and homeless, taken from their profile. I don't know why that would matter, but we go on. I want to say their story is that of courage and resiliency, which I would agree with, but that is furthest from the truth. Rather than use their time with the platform given to empower and lift up women, they maligned and smeared the very institution I care about, policing. A very deserving YWCA nominee, Staff Sergeant Amanda Gill, had a full table in support of her nomination. Rather than be celebrated, she was belittled for her chosen noble profession, surrounded by her peers, senior officers, and in front of the police chief of police, no less. Why would the YWCA Hamilton CEO, Medora Upal, allow anyone to speak poorly of an institution that has done so much in support of them? Although not in attendance, so this person wasn't even at the event, I can only imagine how my colleagues must have felt. This is not the first time a radical left-wing activist has been awarded for promoting divisiveness and not demonstrating leadership or the core values of what the YWCA is supposed or used to stand for. Jelena Vermillion, and I hate having to say this with you listening, Jelena, but I know you
It's all
can.
good.
Jelena Vermillion, you should take ownership of your poor decisions, incarceration, and not blame others. You do not deserve an award or be recognized as a woman, in all caps, of distinction. Below are some of the most amazing women I've had the pleasure of knowing, strong, supportive women who have never said an unkind word about anyone. They are the true path makers and trailblazers, hashtag leadership, hashtag women empowering women, hashtag be kind. So I'm sorry, but the hashtags be kind after what she wrote, which is not just transphobic, woman in all caps, and that tells me something that was the all caps part, Jelena. It was the woman.
Oh,
right?
for sure.
Right?
I think it's
Go ahead.
very disingenuous. Very disingenuous. She was clearly upset. And, my thoughts on it are simply that, she gets such a large salary, or did get such a large salary, and she had such a large pension when she worked for the service. Like, why can't you just be relaxed and enjoy that and be at peace and let civilians express themselves? Unless my words are a threat to them, then there really shouldn't be any problem with civilians speaking freely. Um, and people need to understand that I wasn't trying to say that people who choose to do policing as their so-called profession are not, that their life isn't valuable. I wasn't meaning to imply that. I was meaning to imply rather inversely, that the people who sell sex, whose lives have been dismissed and degraded and ignored when they've been murdered, their investigations into their murders have been not done as vigorously. We look at the Picton murder, where there's about to be parole granted to him, and there's a lot of evidence that is wanting to be destroyed by the RCMP. So the lives of women and non-binary people who have engaged in the sex industry, who have either sustained violence or been victims of gender-based violence, people don't realize that they are largely like underserved. People don't give a shit about us. And so I think that the police are simply proving my point. It's arrogant. And I think that, I've had a lot of comments, like someone's criticizing me about the comments about my head injury. Like, we had to chase down Rebecca Moran. I mean, I witnessed 3 or 4 peers chase after the police officer, yelling and screaming, like, charge this guy, because we saw this happen. And the one person had to grab Rebecca Moran's upper arm in order for them to show us their attention. So it was really, I'm still experiencing, and you can see in the speech, I just want to say on the record, I wasn't trying to say violence against landlords from working class people. I was trying to say from landlords against working class people. Like, that's one of the examples of, I keep switching words in opposite tenses or whatever, because of the cognitive impairment I've experienced as a result of the concussion. Like, these are real things.
We had a video. I talked to you after you got that concussion. I mean, you did the interview with me 24 hours after you were concussed. We have video of the incident where you were dragged down the street in a Take Back the Night march, of all things. You were protecting people you found to be more vulnerable than you as a trans sex worker, and these were another group of more marginalized sex workers that you wanted to defend with your own body. So, did you call the police white supremacists?
I don't recall calling them that, but I mean, I certainly think that I wouldn't, I'm not, I have no problem stating now that I believe that many police officers certainly can be tied to white supremacist organizations.
As you know, when the story came out from the CBC, the exclusive, that this group of volunteer current and former police officers decided they're not going to fundraise for the YWCA and this golf tournament. I just want to stipulate off the top, I don't care whether they're a volunteer or whether the service asked them to do this directly. They're wearing their uniforms. So, you know what, that's the cops brand. Like you're going to wear the uniform. You're going to be the police service and Chief Bergen. You're held to account for what they do in that uniform. And so they decide they're not going to do this. There's a lot of public backlash, but Councillor John Paul Danko wrote that the people at the event who spoke, the women at the event who spoke out against police were ungrateful something toddlers, which got Kojo Damty to do a walking rant about, you know, bro, you don't ever call women toddlers, right? I called for Danko to do a public apology the second that I saw it. A couple minutes later, because of, you know, the maelstrom, John Paul Danko did apologize and said he will strive to do better, which I just want to acknowledge that, because that's what we at least basically need from people. When you fuck up at that level, you apologize and you say you'll do better. And the proof is in the pudding. How is he going to do better, right? What is he going to refrain from saying to diminish people and women in the future? We'll look forward to that. But I also talked to a number of people who were in the audience who were upset that the police who were in attendance were being criticized. And Jelena, for our viewers out there, I just want to make this as explicitly clear as I can, because I've had to have this conversation over and over and over today on DM messaging. It's about power.
Yes.
It's about power.
I'll give you a material example.
Yeah.
The Police Services Act. If I punch a cop, I'm going to jail. Right. If a cop punches me, I have to take months to make a complaint to establish that I am not an uncredible person. I have to establish that I have video evidence for anyone to actually believe me in the 21st century. Whereas before the culture of policing, sorry, my cat just turned out my light. Before in the culture of policing, you maybe just needed a witness, or you maybe just needed like some physical evidence meaning like bruises or whatever. You know, I think that if a nurse, now I'm not a registered nurse, I am a nursing student. I think that if a nurse is hit while working, what happens usually is that the nurse is counseled, and we have to do reflections about, like the registered nurses have to do reflections about what could they have done better to manage the situation. When other people are victims of violence in their workplace, typically, you know, there is a framework, whether to call the police or to, you know, have that person admonished or reprimanded, whatever, up into including termination and trespass or whatever. But think of sex workers. When sex workers are killed, like the woman recently in February of 2022 who was nearly killed, and her mother recently passed. Samantha Beattie did a story that was really lovely about, I almost said her name, I can't say that, about the victims and the survivors. You know, the person who did that to her received 10 years for something that permanently disables her. Of course, we need to establish mens rea, the guilty mind, for attempted murder charge. So I'm glad that at least some vindication, but we also have to think of like, who really is protected? Police have so much power. And I think that this act of withdrawing the funding from YWCA it's class war, because they're punishing marginalized women and non-binary folks who are accessing shelter and other support services at YWCA that I have helped support through Swap Hamilton. And they're punishing them because of the opinion of myself, of a civilian. And now I'm not saying that I'm a lone wolf in my opinion. I certainly don't think that. I think that all of the social media response, and I think that also, you know, they're being reactive. They don't like that I have traction on social media. They don't like that we're vocal. They don't think that sex workers can even, you know, string 3 coherent sentences together. So the fact that I have lectured at Queen's University and many universities, and I am an oratory adept speaker, you know, like I am not afraid to, you know, I think it's ridiculous, the whole situation.
Okay, so let me widen the aperture on this a little bit, Jelena, because I said off the top of the show we live in the hate capital of Canada, and the incidents of hate, not only have they gone up exponentially over the last few years, and there are police statistics to that end, But it is people like yourselves who have the receipts, who literally have the receipts of violence against you, right? Of like, this is public stuff. You have the support you have on social media this morning from community leaders. These aren't just, bots that you buy that are coming to attack your box,
No.
right? You have community leaders who are like, wait a second, this is a community leader who won an award, was awarded something for her community leadership, used her voice in that moment, in the platform she was given to express her experience.
What's happening?
Yeah,
look at what's happening. Look at what's happening with Sabrina Dahab at as a school board trustee. She's being ordered to remove a post about Palestine from social media because apparently it's bad and untoward to talk about denouncing a genocide in 2024, which in my mind is ridiculous. So, and the censorship.
This idea of censoring people's voice. Go ahead.
The censorship of Sarah Jama. We have two Black, really competent, intelligent women being censored, being targeted for censorship. I've had people try to silence me my whole life, and that's why maybe I have such a strong tongue. But I think that, I think that when it comes to a pattern of behavior, we can certainly see that they're playing their hand, showing their hand, and I don't really think that they realize how counterintuitive their consistently poor responses are to these social issues. I think that if they truly wanted to collaborate, bringing up the Pride Defenders, for example, they said the exact same thing at that time. Oh, well, we felt unwelcome. Well, does that mean you need to be derelict of your duty?
Right.
No, it doesn't. Does that mean that you need to actively harass someone on social media? No, it doesn't mean. Does it mean that you need to make transphobic remarks and try to, sort of rob me of my moment of celebration, which has never happened to any other woman of distinction before? Probably not, but you did, and that's a reflection of your character and not mine.
Well, and not to mention other incidents that you've experienced, right? And ones that you alluded to during your speech. And let me add to the pile, Angela Voss, who came from, out of town, because she said on my show here on the Oshow that Andrea Horvath was an NDP mayor. So she thought great opportunity to help people who are marginalized in this community. Couldn't get anywhere, trying to get emergency shelters open, started a protest in front of City Hall over the Parking Over People vote. I had to listen to, someone sent me a radio conversation yesterday, Jelena, I didn't want to listen to because I don't give a lot of credit to the person who was speaking, but I listened because I was asked to by a friend, and I heard them say, what are the real intentions of this Angela Voss woman? She's not from around here. And, and wasn't Laura Babcock feeding those hungry people? Maybe Laura's behind the sign. I listened to it and I thought, what kind of shit is that? It's not even accurate.
It's propaganda.
It's propaganda, and it's trying to shut down her voice because she is a woman who's standing up for other people. She's someone who represents the marginalized. And I just want to put this to what Cameron Crutch said so beautifully on the Oshow. He said, it isn't about the how we say things. It's about what we're saying, who we're fighting for, who we're calling to account. And you called the police to account. Cameron called them to account, right? All the examples that you've just given are about people standing up and holding power to account. And what we get as a result of that are these smear attacks and these attempts to crush us and to silence us. And I don't want to put myself in your category because I'm not as brave as you are, but I get that shit too. So my point is it's part of the patriarchy and the police services. Like, I can't get rid of the patriarchy overnight, but God damn it, I've been trying my whole life. But I'll tell you this much. The police work for me. They work for you. They work for the people of Hamilton. They have an incredible power structure, an incredible responsibility.
They work for my landlord.
What's that?
They work more for my landlord, but yes.
No, but the point is that they're paid by us, so they should be working for us. Maybe that's.
I am a constituent. Regardless of that, I'm a constituent and I am a resident, and I have a right to be protected. So I certainly agree on that point.
Right, and it doesn't matter if you're a taxpayer or you're a resident in the city. When I say they work for us, what I mean is they are part of a public power structure. They get that power. We give them that power. in the exchange, that they are going to use that power with diligence, with guardrails, and with a sense of accountability to our community.
I just think that, it's very hypocritical. And I think that ultimately they're seeing that people are having their consciousness raised and that frightens them. So I think, you know, if they First of all, I think that the funding needs to be reduced. We need to put funding back into social services, into legal, educational, social services, healthcare, et cetera, education, where they should be, because those are the prevention methods, and those are the ways that, you know, the individuals, when they're kept housed and they're fed, and they have a life that provides them purpose, and they're occupied and happy, then they're not necessarily going to be doing a lot of the poverty related behaviors that are captured by the Canada Criminal Code. I also think, I worry for my safety regardless of, like, I'm not going to stop speaking, because that to me is what it means to have integrity. But for me, like, I have seen more police sort of around in my life, in the last few months, as well as after this controversy. And I think they should just really start apologizing, because it could reduce, like, and for what it's worth, for John Paul Danko, I already tweeted this, but I think that, resignation is the most sincere form of apology. Would be lovely to see someone walk their walk and not just talk their talk. It's funny that he characterized Ahona Mendy and I as toddlers, because I believe that children often are great critical thinkers before we silence them. So it's interesting, because I think that children are where our revolution is coming from. People who think more critically, people who feel and are willing to be influenced by other people's experiences, and the humility that comes with understanding other human experiences and ways of living and cultures and beliefs and religions and all of these things, like, like the understanding that alcohol is also a drug, Mr. Danko. You can't criticize with your left hand the people in Hamilton who are using drugs,
Right.
who you think that should just get off the streets or be housed. I don't know exactly what you think, but I'm paraphrasing or characterizing what you said. And with the right hand, say, I don't remember when you posted it, but about your alcohol that you enjoy. Like, that's hypocritical. It's a drug, and so is sugar, and so is nicotine. People really need to just give their heads a shake and get off their high horses, and people need to do their jobs. More importantly, I see so many people that are paid so much money, and they loaf and they rest on their laurels, and I'm sick of people that I see actually doing work in their community who don't get fairly compensated, women mostly, and it just, yeah, that's what I have to say.
And I have to say, as our Oshow viewers know, I've had John Paul Danko over for drinks. I mean, lots of counsel over the years. But when he put out like that little horrible X mark list tweet last year about what homeless people's rules should be up and out by 7, no alcohol, I was like, buddy, are you serious? You couldn't live up to those standards. Like, that's garbage, right?
Precisely.
I said so on the Oshow, and then he actually came on the Oshow and took the hit from me and acknowledged that. I mean, so
Sanctimonious.
yeah, I mean, like, here's the thing, is that I'm not apologizing for Danko. He's got to prove when he apologizes that he means it and stop saying these kinds of things, and fight for policies that prove it, right? Whether he resigns or whether or not he starts to fight hard for people that he degrades in these posts, whatever. I want to see good come out of these things. I'm not nearly as zen as you are, Jelena. I wish I had your temperament. I'll probably live a lot longer if I don't get so upset. But what I'm always hoping for is that people learn and improve. People in power use their power for good. I'm learning, I'm evolving, we all are, right? We make mistakes, but use your power for good. So thank you for being on this, and I have to make the pun powerful episode of the Oshow.
So if I can just, on the last
Yeah.
word kind of thing, ultimately them removing funding is not going to harm a $33 million organization in the scheme of things, but it's the symbolism, and it's also the police are just taking their toys and going away because
Yep.
someone said tickety boo. And I think that that's really immature, ultimately. And I also think that we need to think about Chevrana Abdi. Chevrana Abdi was a Somalian transgender refugee who lived in Hamilton and sold sex because she lived to avoid, living in poverty, and she struggled with substance use. She had a mental health crisis, and she's the perfect example and a literal local example of someone who could have used YWCA services, and the police are just perpetuating a system where someone else like Chevrana Abdi could be made vulnerable to dying and to police violence in the future. So shame on the police, and they need to do better. And doing better means stepping up, not just an apology. It takes action.
You know what? The police chief makes almost $400,000 a year. They have the biggest chunk of our budget, right? Which can't really be challenged. We found that out. And so the idea that on top of all of that, we have to be non-critical, can't look at the budget, no matter what kind of job we have. We're not supposed to speak, even when we have a platform to do so, anyway, critical of the police. That's absolute nonsense, right?
Yeah.
They have power. They have a higher standard for public accountability, and they need to your point, apologize for, I think, that post to you. And I also, it's not enough just to wipe it. You should apologize for it. Also, for this move, I hope that those police officers, and I'm not calling them volunteers because they were in their uniforms, they were representing that power. If they are going to pull this participation, they, I think, should make it right with the YWCA, because I think it's a wrong move for them. Listen, we don't need to keep repeating the same mistakes in this town. We're the hate capital of Canada for many reasons. One of them is the erosion of trust between marginalized communities and the police. We've got lots of evidence of why that exists. We need to build and do better. So Chief Bergen, shame on you for how you've been handling this situation or not handling the situation. And we need to do better as a community for the safety of everyone, especially people like Jelena, who may get repercussions for her free words, right? I just want to end with that, Jelena, because I rant and rage all day long, but I have a lot of privilege. So like nothing happens to me, you don't speak without potential consequence to you and to your physical safety and to that of the people that you care about, to your family. So I just want to thank you for your voice. I'm so proud that the YWCA, under the leadership of Medora Upal, but I know it's a volunteer judging committee, that they awarded you with a Woman of Distinction Award as a member of that same group. I'm proud to have you as part of that group, and I'm proud of the work that you do in our community. Did you have any last thoughts before I sign off?
First of all, thank you for your kind words. Thank you for having me on the Oshow today. I also wanted to say that you're talking about me putting my body on the line, but that's what white privilege is for. I am a white trans woman. I'm thin. I'm an intellectual, and I'm more than happy to do what I think is righteous. And I'm more than happy to do what I think other people are scared to do, the thing that takes courage. And what is most important is that Swap Hamilton represents the industry of people who labor in it. And that includes Black, Indigenous, Asian, otherwise racialized sex workers who live with disabilities, single mothers, trans and non-binary sex workers who use drugs, sex workers who live with mental illness. There is a huge, I'm just one person. As I said in my original speech, I am more than happy to be an avatar or a symbol of a person to bring these messages forth. And I just hope that that they get assimilated, and I hope that it changes hearts and minds, and I hope that we can resist, revolt, and recuperate.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Thanks everyone for watching the Oshow. Coming up on Friday, we have Councillor Maureen Wilson on the Mayor's veto, affordable housing, the historical context, why we have to avoid consolidating it into neighborhoods, and a whole bunch of other really important information on the homeless and housing crisis coming up Friday on the Oshow. Thanks for subscribing.
When you care about current affairs, it's on the Oshow. And when you want to get clear what's going on here, it's on the Oshow. If you like to stay in the know, tune yourself into the Oshow. It's the Oshow. Laura Babcock's the Oshow. With a lot of great guests, she puts them to the test on the Oshow. There's no doubt they'll be calling them out on the Oshow. Stand for something or fall for it all. Ontario, hear the call of the Oshow. It's a podcast, the Oshow. Laura Babcock's the Oshow. Stay informed with the Oshow.